I was born in El Paso, Texas, while my parents were there under special orders of Congress, Operation Paperclip. They were living in William Beaumont Annex housing at Fort Bliss with the Wernher von Braun team. About half of the team were taken by bus daily out to White Sands Proving Grounds so that they could share with captains of industry and professors and various ones that were interested in what is this unique thing, this rocket that they built back in Germany during the war.
There was no answer to the V2. It was so fast and very destructive. I was born in 1936, so I remember the war pretty well. Grew up through the Blitz in Portsmouth. Had my first experience with injury when a V1 came down on my street. It killed all the neighbors and my uncle. It was kind of strange. I'm on the receiving end of the vengeance weapons of Germany. And 20 years later, I'm sitting with Wernher von Braun in the blockhouse. Von Braun was primarily the V2. If the Germans had had it a year or more earlier, it could have made an effect on the results of the war.
I myself and everybody you see here have decided to go west, and I think our decision was not one of expediency, but a moral decision. We knew that we had created a new means of warfare, and the question as to what victorious nation we were willing to entrust this brainchild of ours was a moral decision more than anything else.
I don't feel they were really happy working on what they thought was a weapon, but they saw it that it was the Americans against the Russians in the Cold War that was starting to brew. And in that way, I feel they thought that they could now maybe make amends for what had occurred before.
The V2 was streets ahead of its time. That rocket was the foundation for the Redstone rocket. The Redstone stepped into the Jupiter. We then took a Jupiter tank and 8 Redstone rockets and built a Saturn I. Then we took that whole concept and built the Saturn V. And von Braun had his hand in that from day one.
Amid the fertile farmlands of northern Alabama, the Army consolidates its expanding missile activities late in 1949. World War II Army ammunition and chemical warfare installations are joined and reactivated as Redstone Arsenal. Early in 1950, the Army moves the former German missile experts, other components of its missile team, and some military personnel here to continue rocket development.
When I graduated from Auburn University, jobs were hard to find. I ran a service station for a while trying to make a little money, but one weekend I went home and a friend of mine told me they were hiring people over in Huntsville.
I was interviewed by one of the Germans, Dr. Hensey, and I was impressed by him. I was not impressed by the facility, though, nor the equipment they had. They were very austere, Quonset huts and concrete block buildings that had been part of the munitions. I deliberated over it and finally I decided, well, I believe it's worth a chance. And that, of course, about the best decision I ever made was to come. And so I came in March of '52.
Germans had been exposed to several vehicles when they were White Sands, so I think they pretty much had in mind the Redstone.
What the Russians did, we had to counter. And the Russians, we had heard, had a 200-mile range guided missile.
We assembled and checked out that Redstone vehicle, and then they would carry it over to the test stand and do the firing.
Blast!
I never saw it in any light except for space. The Army may have, but I certainly didn't.